Hello, everyone. As participants are filing in here, I'm going to do a brief introduction and I will let my two wonderful panelists also introduce themselves. Uh, if you are hoping to be at Orum's Tactical AI webinar, congratulations, you're in the right place. We appreciate you joining us today. My name is Adam Sockel. I manage content here at Orum. And I am really, really excited to be joined by both Parthi and Jared, who I'm gonna let them introduce themselves. Jared, you are on the top of my screen, so do you want to let everyone know what your role is and what Navan does and all that good stuff?
Absolutely, Adam. Thanks for having me. First of all, as far as myself, my name is Jared Smith. I'm a senior manager for the enterprise sales development organization. I run the West Coast enterprise sales development team at Navan. Navan is a leader in travel and expense management technology within B2B space. So I've been with the company a little under 2 years. I'm like a toddler here, and I've had the pleasure of implementing a few AI technologies during my time. So I'm excited to share a little more about that.
Excited to have you here. All right, Parthi, over to you. Would you like to introduce yourself and Letterdrop a little bit to our audience here?
Absolutely. So my name is Parthi. I'm the founder and CEO of Letterdrop. We're a YC-backed startup that automates social selling on LinkedIn. And so we make your sellers look smart so that they can build trust with buyers, book more meetings, and get ghosted less.
Love that. That is fantastic. And in case you are unfamiliar with Orum, we are a live conversation platform powered by AI. So in short, we get you into more conversations with your prospects. We're going to be discussing AI a lot today. And we had a really interesting pre-call conversation about a week ago where Parthi, you pointed out something really, really important to let everyone else know in the audience. And I just want to kind of clarify this as well. We are going to be talking about tools that have AI in them. Obviously, we are not talking exclusively about just like implementing AI into your system. So we're going to be talking about different platforms and tools that have AI built within them and how that can help automate a lot of your workflows and make things much more efficient. So it's just a little qualifier we wanted to point out there. We're not expecting anyone in here to know how to implement artificial intelligence by writing code and all of that goodness. So none of that there. We'll talk about some tools and different ways that we have been using them. So this is a really great clarification that Parthi had for us last week. So, first things first, I want to dive right into both of your introductions into implementing AI in your own processes. So kind of like the when and why did it start? And Parthi, I will start on your end. What was your first kind of delve into this space?
Absolutely. And just to give everybody context, and I'm sure Jared's going to have a very different perspective from me because he runs a much larger team as part of a much larger organization. We have a small go-to-market team. We have an AE, a BDR, and in some cases myself, essentially running the sales process. And so that begets a certain type of challenge for an organization our size. In terms of AI, and I love that Adam kind of brought this up, we don't really think about how do we incorporate AI into our company. What we really think about is what are the challenges our business is facing right now? What are blockers to success? And what kinds of software tools can we actually utilize to unblock us so that we can actually use our human capital better? And so some of that is like just regular old software and JavaScript. And some of that is AI. So for example, we use Orum. We didn't buy Orum necessarily because we wanted an AI tool. We bought Orum because we saw that cold calling was working really well for us. And we wanted to do more of it without spending a lot of time dialing. And so we were on the market for power dialers. We looked at different solutions like Orum and Nuts. Then we decided, hey, like this is a solution we want to go with. And so it happens that Orum also has a lot of AI features built in to help us actually connect to buyers faster when dialing. Similarly, we've implemented a bunch of other solutions which have AI built in, tools like Clay, which we use to automate a lot of research. So it scrapes websites, it scrapes LinkedIn job postings for us. And so that essentially helps our BDR actually understand, hey, here's a target list of people I want to go through, and we have some information on them as opposed to just downloading a list of accounts from like a Zoom in for Apollo and going through them where you have no prior information. So we've really transformed a lot of our outbound to be really based on triggers where we are making observations of companies or behaviors in people, and we're kind of going after that. And so in terms of triggers, we use a couple of these. We use tools like Clay for research around websites and job postings. We use tools like Wormly and RB2B to understand who's on our website, along with Clearbit. We use our own product. We use Letterdrop to understand like how people are consuming LinkedIn content, liking, commenting, viewing profiles, following us, all that kind of stuff. And finally, the way in which we've used AI sales is because of our product, we've also had to actually build AI into our product. And so we've really thought about how AI can actually use sales conversations and internal data to actually help you with thought leadership by essentially transforming conversations that you're having with your customers into public-facing thought leadership that's going to help you build trust with your buyers. So that's kind of our AI suite around sales, really. It's everything from cold calling to research to a little bit of thought leadership and sales-led marketing, where we've used AI, but everything really started off with a business problem and not with, we want to use AI in our process.
I love that. My host internal compass wants to ask you a million questions, but I'm gonna make sure I can get Jared to get his hand on the ball here as well. So Jared, kind of walk me through kind of the same thing, like implementing AI into your processes. When did it start? Why did it start? And then we'll expand from there as a group.
Don't worry, Adam. We'll get you a chance to ask quite a few questions here. I'll keep it pithy. As far as like when it started for me, I think playing off of exactly what Parthi mentioned, it was a business problem that needed solving. I was not at all thinking in 2019 when I was looking for like a call coaching software or a way to coach reps who lived in a different part of the country than I did. I wasn't thinking I need an AI tool to do this. I was thinking, what's a great call transcription tool? And what are the different features within that tool set that I should look at? And so for me, that's really when it started. I was looking at a variety of ways to coach reps. I was managing a team in Arizona while living in Oakland. And I needed to do it at scale. And so I started looking at actually Chorus first and then eventually found Gong. Clearly I was pretty impressed. I ended up working there not a couple months later. But that was the initial thing. It's, hey, what can we do to record calls, to learn from those? And then as you get into it, you're like, okay, this AI thing is really helping me. It's doing some work on the back end without me having to listen to every call. It's starting to save me some time. And I think that's when I started to realize that there was something really, really cooking in the sales tech space. And moving past that, I mean, today, I'm sure we'll touch on a couple of different implementations that I've been a part of at Navan, but today we're using AI within an account research tool we've got. We're using generative AI when it comes to a number of different ways that we're writing emails and marketing content that goes out for our kind of top of funnel efforts, if you will. And I think there's a variety of places where we're looking at adding other tools. But what it really comes back to is like, what's the problem that our business is struggling with, and how do we map a solution to that, which is going to help us, in my case, drive top of funnel results. And oftentimes it ends up being a tool at the top that has some component of AI incorporated.
I want to we'll dive into the top of the funnel in just a moment here as well. But I do want to talk about the implementation process that you both have referenced. You know, we said it at a very high level, but I think one of the things that I have constantly seen as people talk more and more about AI, this like amorphous thing, is like, we started using AI and it changed everything for us. But I don't think enough people are talking about the actual practical aspects of onboarding it. And so, you know, Jared, we can start with you here. You know, this is potentially going to differ from platform to platform, but I do think it's really interesting to hear, like, what are some of the tactical examples of some of these AI tools that you're using? Like, how did you actually onboard them? And this could be just like an initial conversation with, a CSM, or like, are these tools, are the people that you're working with, are they explicitly focusing on the AI when you're implementing them, or sort of just like take us through the actual implementation process for some of these tools?
Yeah. So I was a part of a project. It's an ongoing project, but it was like cross-functional project with myself, representing SDR leadership, our AE leadership, revenue operations, really anyone who would need to sign off on getting something purchased, but also like successfully implemented. And as part of that project, we wanted to early on incorporate, managers and end users in like the vision setting session for any tool that we were looking at bringing on. And I think that was one of the big differentiators in tools that we implemented very successfully from day one versus ones where it took a second for our reps to really like find tremendous value. It was, did we have the right people involved early enough to understand like the full scope of the project, and then what the like downstream effects of implementing this tool would be. There's a quote in the report, the like AI and sales dev report, that really stands out here for me, which is, AI tools shouldn't operate as a black box. I'm paraphrasing, but rather a clear box. And as you think about that concept, I think it related directly to one of the POCs that we ran, where our reps very quickly lost faith in what was happening because they just didn't understand how, through this process, something was coming out on the other end. So I think getting people's buy-in very, very early on and understanding what the like full scope of any implementation is going to be really important. Now, when it comes to managers, managing a team of new reps using a new tool, personally, I'm a fan of like crawl, walk, run. I'm a parent, so everything I do relates to my kids in some way, shape, or form. Set some like early mile markers along the way. Make sure that you're crawling with like, a clean form before you try and stand something up and start walking. And once you're comfortable walking, look, you're going to naturally want to run, especially when it comes to sales tech tools. When people see that you can like take something and apply it and start running, I think you'll be happy with the results there.
Yeah. Parthi, I'm gonna ask you the same question. I will just let everyone know. Jared referenced an AI report. I put it in the comments if you would like to check it out. We wrote an AI in sales dev report that we recently released, so it's there if you want to click on it. Parthi, for you, kind of walk me through the implementation process for you. Obviously, a different size team. I imagine it's a little bit different, but I would love to hear your experience on that end.
Yeah, I think obviously much smaller team than Jared's. And so we're pretty quick in terms of experimenting with stuff and deciding if something is right for us or not. And so I think for us, it's really either myself or our PDR or AE learning about something online, that mapping to an activity that they're doing every day, which they feel like is inefficient, and just picking it up. And so even with like the sort of like power dialer solution, like I was not actually involved in the sales process at all. I just like signed off at the end of it. And so they went through like search on Google, like went through LinkedIn, like asked their friends and figure out the solutions that they kind of wanted there. In terms of actual onboarding and implementation, it's all pretty quick because of the size of our team. So I wouldn't say there's necessarily a lot of complexity there. The one thing I will point out that I was surprised happened for a company our size is we started getting overlapping tools and duplication. And I thought that was a larger company problem where you'd have multiple solutions, which essentially do the same thing. But it started happening a lot sooner than I expected. I think that's why you really want to think about the problem you're solving. Start with the problem instead of like buying solutions as a whole, and just make sure that the solution you buy is actually solving that problem, and the ROI you're getting from solving that problem compared to like what you're paying for is definitely worth it. So I think that's just something that a lot of people, especially in sales tech, have to, or like when you're buying sales software, have to think about, because I think a lot of people want to be platforms. A lot of people want to solve a lot of problems, or they totally understand But you should really think about your own business and what you actually need to solve for and really prioritize accordingly.
I love that. That's such a strong point because I do think with the fact that from an AI standpoint, in the report that we wrote, 95% of organizations are experimenting with AI in their sales process in some way. And because of that, there is this need for every single organization to say, we're using AI to an extent of X, Y, and Z. And I think because of that, you can sort of get like almost like a platform bloat where you initially start using a tool for one thing. And then they say like, well, now we can do X, Y, and Z because they want to be the all encompassing platform that they want to keep you in your space. They want you to never leave that space. And then you start realizing you have this platform and then you bring on something else. And I think a lot of the interesting thing I have found with tools is they're adding new features from an AI standpoint so quickly that it's almost impossible to realize everything that they can do. And so to your point, sometimes it's just like, oh, we need a platform to create content at the top of the funnel and not realizing like, oh, we actually have like 3 that can do that if we only understand the extent of what they provide. Speaking of top of funnel, I would love to hear how both of your teams are using AI to create initial awareness for your offerings. I'm going to start with Parthi because we joked at our pre-call. This is kind of a Parthi-centric question. And Jared, I'll let you speak after Parthi, but can you sort of walk me through that process of using AI to create that initial awareness?
Yeah, absolutely. So I just want to be, at least like our stance on this is that for the most part, your BDR team should be trying to capture existing demand in the market and identifying people who are in market ready to purchase in the next 3 months and really just going after those folks. I think it's a fairly expensive and inefficient way to use a BDR team to essentially introduce a new product to people who are completely unaware. I feel like that is something that is better suited for marketing. So just a distinction. That's like how we think about things personally, right? And so what we really use AI for top of funnel is obviously a lot in our marketing. So helping us with research for a lot of content, helping us with like cutting up clips. A lot of about 64% of our inbound comes in from LinkedIn, and the rest of it is through SEO. And then our outbound is really working off of a lot of that. So if we see people who seem active on LinkedIn with us, with our content, with our profiles, or we see people on our website consuming content, visiting our pricing page, booking demos, or on LinkedIn, we see somebody having a job change or anything along those lines, those are the only instances where we actually reach out to people. We're not just going to reach out to somebody because we feel like it. We always reach out to people because we feel like there's a reason or this observation which makes them a really good fit for us. And so the real question is, how do you get all these signals? You need to actually invest a little bit in marketing to put yourself out there, treat it as essentially like creating surface area for the world to engage with you, for your prospects to engage with you, and then identifying who is in your orbit. So on the sales side, what our team does is they're already having lots of conversations. It's really important for our BDR, for our AE, to be people that our buyers want to connect with. Adam, I've seen you in Ryan's comments sometimes, and people say like, no one's going to ever engage with the BDR. Like, I just want to say there's CROs, VPs of marketing, VPs of sales engaging with our BDR. And that's just because he's an interesting person to follow and talk with, and as he's posting great content online. A lot of that content's actually coming from actual sales conversations. So we use Letterdrop to actually take these conversations, pull out questions from other CROs, from other VPs of sales, from heads of marketing. And then we use that to create thought leadership, largely automated, because you already have all the ingredients of the conversation to go out to all of our accounts with very light editing. And so that honestly serves as the sort of like genesis for a lot of our outreach, by making sure that we are putting ourselves out there, things like a webinar, things like podcasts, things like thought leadership content, so that the right people can engage with us, and then we can reach out to them if we think there's strong enough signal.
Yeah, I love that. we're gonna dive deeper into that in a second. But Jared, is your team doing something similar? Are you guys creating that top of funnel content, or are your sellers more just focused on the selling aspect, and you have other people doing the top of funnel content creation?
Well, I think regardless if you've got, the best marketing team in the world or an incredibly expensive outbound team, at some level, an SDR team and an SDR themselves is going to feel like they need to create some level of an initial awareness within a company, within an outbound approach. So I think when it comes to ways that we're driving some initial awareness, I would mainly lean into the email outbound approach, where we've really trained an LLM-based email tool on everything Navan. And with that, you're able to put some pretty interesting persona-specific content in front of folks who are part of that 95% of the market that isn't ready to buy, but needs to be aware and needs to learn, especially when we're a company that's a disruptive force within the industry that we serve. I think it's important to lean into that awareness piece and use the engine, the SDR program that you've built to augment what your content folks are already putting out there. SDR GPT in the comments. SDR GPT, big fans of those guys. They've been helping. I think we'll talk a little bit later about specific instances of use of AI within the tech stack, but they crush email for us.
Yeah. And I will say, to Parthi's point, he's right. I was laughing because I do interact with Ryan, your BDR, quite often on LinkedIn, and I feel like I know him as a person now. And for us here at Orum, one of the tools I use is called Opus Clips. It is a tool that lets you take long form content like what we're doing right now from a video standpoint, and it shortens it into small, 30-second to 3-minute clips. And so if you follow Orum on LinkedIn or YouTube or TikTok and you see clips of stuff, I'm using this tool called Opus Clips, and it's great from an organizational standpoint, but you can also use it as an individual, as a BDR or a founder or a CRO, whatever it is. You can record a video of yourself in Zoom or Riverside or wherever you are, drop it into Opus Clips, and you can put captions on it, and you can use that from a frequency standpoint to let the more you have it out there, people start to recognize who you are and what you're doing and the message that you're putting out there. So then when you do reach out to them, there is that recognition, something that I'll give Parthi some credit. Ryan is very, very good at doing at Letterdrop. You sort of answered this, Parthi, but this is a really good question from Connor. He said, how do you find those people that are ready to buy in 3 months? So I know you sort of tapped into this a little bit, but just to kind of expand on it, because it is a really important question, given Jared's point that 5% of the market at any given time are actually interested in buying.
Yeah, I mean, it really comes down to how you think about this repeatable revenue playbook that has been in effect for the past decade, where historically money was a little bit cheaper. And so people would be like, okay, we need to hit these very aggressive targets. So we're just going to hire more BDRs, more AEs, whatever. And the hope is that we're going to linearly increase our ability to book revenue. And so a couple of things have changed since then. You can't that's not true. There's a diminishing marginal returns to just adding people to a team. And then B, we just can't afford that anymore. In this market environment where you don't know when your next funding round is coming in, you just don't know if you can do that. So getting your existing sales team and your existing headcount to be as efficient as possible in terms of figuring out who is going to buy now, because we can't afford to be going after people who are going to buy 9 months from now and using expensive human resources to be doing that. You have to be very thoughtful about it. And so for us, in terms of figuring out, we really look for triggers. We're not just going to try to nurture people who we think are very far from purchasing. We're really just being like, hey, the TAM of people who are in market right now and exposing themselves by engaging with our website or job changes or commenting on stuff or anything along those lines, we kind of go after them as our first level. And honestly, at least for our scale and size, that is more than enough people. We can't even reach out to all those people with thoughtful emails. And we do use AI tools to help us arrange that data from Clay and stuff like that. But everything that ever goes out from Letterdrop from our team is actually human read. We just personally do not believe in letting AI content go live and like letting somebody. It's either completely templated with some variables, or it is human read. We just do not trust AI to make that connection for us right now. So that's kind of how we do it. It's just like trigger based. I think beyond that, if you feel like you've exhausted your TAM and you need to start nurturing people who have not indicated anything, I think you can go after that market. Just keep in mind that it might be a better use of time for marketing to try to figure out how to do that at scale than for you to be using like human resources to go after it. I think this is where AI comes in, and where if you can reduce the cost of that one-on-one email interaction, keep in mind that you are spamming people's inboxes. So just keep that in mind. Then maybe it is potentially cost effective to also like nurture those people who may not be in market right now, but might be in 6 months, 9 months. But the problem still is like you have to reach their inbox, and that might be hard with email versus sort of like one-to-many marketing type stuff. LinkedIn, newsletters, webinars might be easier to reach them. And you can still get your sales team to do that. It doesn't have to just be like the company, like you're still an individual who reaches out to them. You can put a face to a name on LinkedIn or something like that and create content.
Yeah, I love that. And I want to get to efficiency in just a moment, but I will say you touched on something that I think is really important. If anyone listening here is taking a meeting with a company that has an AI tool, if they tell you their AI tool can get 100% of the way there, don't believe them. Not yet, anyway. I just had a wonderful conversation with a CMO of a content creation tool, and he's like, this tool is wonderful for doing everything up until like the editing standpoint, and then you as a human need to spend a half hour or whatever it is editing that content that might have previously taken you 6 hours to create, but you still need to do that last bit at the end. So yeah, don't rely on AI to do 100% of the processes just yet. But speaking of processes and efficiency, as you said, Parthi, I'm curious, and we'll start with you, Jared. Like, what are some of the specific processes your team is using AI to automate?
Yeah. I think research is the first one where we've saved a ton of time. And to your point, like the power of a human to connect the dots and actually take that research and turn it into like a thoughtful bit of outreach, I think is like a huge need that's not going away anytime soon. Thankfully for most of us on the call, right? Jobs are safe. But when it comes to research specifically, external research, reading 10Ks, like breaking down public earnings calls, these are like time consuming efforts that today our reps have completely automated for them, which is amazing. The other piece that I'm a huge fan of, and we're in the process of testing out a tool called Actively. I think their CEO Anshul, or co-founder, is he's in the report a couple of times, which I loved. Unstructured data internally takes a lot of time to pull insight from. Unstructured data like call notes, old demo notes, account notes that an AE left in 2023, right? Opportunity notes fields, those sort of things for a new SDR who's learning about their patch. Especially in my space where it's an enterprise account where we've had numerous conversations, that can take a long time to sort through. So big fan of the time savings that AI tools have provided within our research process. I think I've mentioned email personalization a bit, and just giving you maybe a push out of writer's block territory sometimes, the tool, or connecting the dots in a way that maybe you hadn't thought to, has been a big plus. And then, yeah, we're using Orum. I think there's a lot to be said for having a smart auto dialer that is doing its part to cut out some of the waste in your outbound phone process. And so those, I guess, like 3 processes, kind of cleaning some of the phone data that you're working with and ensuring that you're using that to its the time spent on that activity is being best spent on the right sort of prospects, I think has been another big time saver for us.
Yeah, I'll just give some data out there. This will not be an Orum pitch, but I will say if you are making phone calls, our data shows that each individual manual phone call that you're making takes 3 minutes. And that doesn't count the prospect, that doesn't count like the research. That's just the dialing, the listening to the actual ringtone, potentially talking to a gatekeeper, leaving a voicemail. So tools like Orum or one of our competitors, if you are making a lot of phone calls, that is where the AI and the automation happens from a dialing standpoint, is eliminating that 3 minutes per call that you're just like sitting there not doing anything. So that's just one data point that is always very jarring to me when you multiply it by the 100+ calls you try to make in a day. Parthi, how about you? What are some of the processes your team is actively automating through AI?
Yeah, I want to actually quote Ryan, our BDR, on this. I think he said something along the lines of like, every minute I spend that is like not actively talking to a prospect is a minute wasted. And so basically his ideal day would just be like every single minute, just like an active conversation over DM or call, what have you, talking to somebody right then. And so if you think about his time spent on other activities, it's definitely like research, like Jared mentioned. It's definitely crafting messages or collecting data in terms of figuring out like what type of message to craft. It's definitely like sitting around and dialing, which is what we purchased Orum for. And so I think those are all of the types of activities that we're really trying to automate for him. Also, like just sifting through these signals, right? Like identifying like who you actually want to reach out to at any given point in time. When you have like a lot of different people, you don't want to waste your time or miss the opportunity of somebody who is like more in market and like be wasting your time like cold calling or emailing somebody who is 6 months away from even being remotely in market. That's just like a very inefficient use of time. And so like being able to like read those signals and understand like who is more prone to buy is very important.
I want to ask you both about. I'm going to skip ahead a question or two, but I want to talk about change management. I want to ask you both, like, for in the report, what we talk about is how leaders like yourselves feel about AI, but also how buyers feel, and then also how sellers actually feel about using these tools, and will it take their jobs, and these big scary questions. How do you approach your sellers with the idea of these tools are going to make you better at your job without them fearing that they're going to, lose their jobs because of them? I mean, obviously it all comes down to like, if people are willing to do the work, they're going to do the work. But, from a change management and, like an emotional intelligence standpoint, and just like being aware of the people that are working for you, how are you guys addressing, like how should leaders approach any potential adoption hesitancy, I suppose? And I'll start with you, Jared.
Yeah, I think there's a couple pieces that come to mind, and I can think of a few POCs and one-on-ones where I talked about exactly this topic. First of all, for like SDRs today who get a chance to use some of this technology, they're setting their careers up potentially for an incredibly different trajectory than folks who are not adopting this technology today. And what I mean there is we see how lightning fast this space is changing. And I'm convinced within 2 or 3 years, if you're not a master of using a variety of different AI platforms within your outbound approach, you will be getting dominated by the folks who have figured out how to do this well. And so just getting a young professional to buy into their own personal development and positioning, mastering these tools as such, I think has been by far the most effective way that I have managed through any sort of like adoption hesitancy. The other piece that I would say is for folks who aren't believers right off the bat, I haven't pushed super hard. I'll push with the people who want to do it. And then I'll come back to the non-believers with proof. And that to me, maybe I have the benefit of working in a larger business and I can kind of do that and find the folks who really want to lean in early. But that to me is always the difference between an early adopter and someone who's maybe a little bit later to the game. They don't believe in it yet. And so luckily we've been able to prove out most of these ideas in the market.
I love that. Parthi, how about you?
Smaller team, so a little bit different, but I would say it's pretty similar to what Jared said. Proof is in the pudding. Like, you actually have to show people like, hey, this is a smarter way to work. And I think the hard thing to think about is time to value. Sometimes these solutions do take a little bit of patience before you start seeing the results. And so you essentially have to kind of like handhold people or show them or do it yourself to show them like, hey, I put in the work along with the solution for whatever X weeks, and here's what I start getting. I think a great example is both on our team, Zach and Ryan both were very apprehensive of social selling when they came in, and now you couldn't convince them not to do it. They pick up the phone. People are like, yep, I've heard of you. I follow you guys online. We get emails being like, okay, yeah, like I've seen you around. Like, I want to have a conversation with you. Their DMs are better. People don't ghost our AE quite as much just because they engage with them online. So they're really bought into it. Similarly with power dialers, I think there was some concern on our side, just be like, oh no, I'm gonna just like get on a phone call with a random person. Like, I want to have done account research on this person I'm connecting with and know what I'm going to say, because otherwise I'm just kind of wasting my time just saying like, hello, who are you? And so we actually spent a couple of months not actively, like we needed a power dialer, but we didn't do it because of that apprehension. And then eventually, like, we just discovered that this was one of our best channels, and we needed to get Ryan and Zach on the phone more. And so they actually did some demos with products out there. I think the team at Orum actually sat down and were like, you need to make like 75 calls or something like that to hit that magic number and actually see the results. And I think once you put in the work and you're actually sufficiently motivated, you'll actually see the results and prove it to yourself. So I think there is this sort of leap of faith that a lot of people do need to take. I think at early stage teams like ours, or within a larger company, a small subset is willing to try to spend the time to look for that kind of early alpha. And you really want to lean into those folks, getting them to prove it out and showing those results to the broader team to get everybody else onboarded.
I love that. For the participants that are listening in, I'm just going to launch a poll. This is a very passive way of us asking if you want a demo, so that we don't just spam all of you. So I'm going to launch that in a second. I'm going to ask you both another question or two while we're hanging out here, though. Instead of asking you the impossible, what is the future of AI look like? Instead, I'm going to ask you, what excites you most about the possibilities in the sales space thanks to AI? And I'll start with you, Parthi.
I think for me, it's really just giving people time back and giving sales reps the ability to spend time on things which actually matter. And ultimately, I think that's just going to be human-to-human connection, right? Over time, it's going to be easier than ever for software to answer any sort of like question for you that has been asked before. It's easier than ever for software to do research for you. I think the entire buyer journey ultimately is going to boil down to like, do I want to do business with this other company? And that company is being represented by this person, especially for larger purchases where it's on PLG. You do want to talk to somebody and have them and feel like reassured that you are making the right decision for you. And look, 80% of those questions are going to be answered by AI. They've been asked before. You can like pull them up for automatically. And then at the end of the day, I think what sellers really need to do is try to figure out the human element. How do I help you navigate the work chart? How do I help you actually understand whether this is a good fit for you? How do I make sure you trust me, not beyond our solution and more as a business consultant to help you implement the solution so you can see the result that you want to achieve? And so I'm really excited for sellers to spend more time on that and less time on quote unquote right work, which needed to be done around sales all these years.
Yeah. We call that administrative creep around here, which we're trying to get rid of. Jared, how about you? What's something you're really excited about from a possibility standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, frankly, I think Parthi nailed it with my general take on this. What I would build on, I mean, frankly, Ryan's quote that was shared earlier. Anytime that he's not spending with a prospect on the phone or trying to connect with the prospect, feels like wasted time. And I think making that hypothetical a reality through the use of sales tech, that to me is very exciting. I know from my time as an AE, there's nothing that motivated me more than talking to a prospect who I felt really got it and understood where I was coming from, where our solution was oriented within the market. And my hope is that as we continue down this path and we get better at our targeting and messaging and working folks through the funnel, that salespeople get to spend more time talking to the right folks who do get it. And yeah, to Parthi's point, now we can spend more time learning how to navigate the buying process, knowing that we've found the right champion, as opposed to having a ton of grunt work worthy conversations with the wrong person at the wrong time.
Amazing. I want to thank you both for joining me today. Everyone who has joined into the conversation, we will send you a follow-up email with the recording that you can check out, as well as a link again to the State of AI and Sales Development report. This was a blast. I really, really love doing this. Parthi, Jared, thank you both so much for joining me today.
Absolutely, Adam.
Thanks for having us.
Guys.